Hey, this is Tony Soprano, and you're listening to Jersey Boyz Podcast with your hosts, Dave Sturchio and the Ernst Boys. I mean, I could give a shit about the Cowboys. We're in New Jersey. These guys got balls being Cowboys fans in Jersey. Anyways, enjoy. Or whatever.
How about this, Cowboys?
What's going on, Cowboys Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Jersey Boy Podcast, the Jersey Boyz Podcast here. Dave Sturchio, alongside nobody. Listen, things happen. It's the holidays. We want to get another episode out there. Keith is driving back from Vegas. Bret is handling some personal matters. So you just got me, and I hope that's okay. I hope everybody's enjoying themselves. I know it's Christmas week. Schedules are they're jumbled right now, and it's hard to get some content flowing, but here I am, and we'll figure that all out. But the Cowboys come off with an improbable win, a great way to win, 26-24 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, playing a little bit of the Grinch here. We're not talking about Keith Ernst, we're talking about the Cowboys playing a little bit of a Grinch. They might have knocked Tampa Bay out of the playoffs. The likelihood of them making the playoffs is now like a 50-50 chance. Them losing twice to the Atlanta Falcons this year didn't do them any favors. So the Falcons may make the playoffs with Michael Penix Jr. as their quarterback. Kirk Cousins almost set to get released, which is even crazier. But yeah, listen, last night, before the game, obviously the Cowboys got the news that they were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And while that doesn't sit well with most fans, including myself, it was something that happened without them doing anything. So it wasn't like, they got eliminated based off Washington beating Philadelphia, which, by the way, fantastic performance out of Jaden Daniels. Obviously now, a little bit of an influx situation now with the Eagles in week 17, the Cowboys' next opponent with Jalen Hurts possibly on the outs, suffered a concussion yesterday. You can get into all that. You can go look up your Eagles podcast, but this is a Dallas Cowboys vehicle. And what they were able to pull off last night was one of my favorite wins of the season. Now the Cowboys now are sitting there at 8-9. I'm sorry, 7-8. Sorry, 7-8. And I was getting way too ahead of myself there. 7-8 record with 2 games to play. And the way they did it last night, knowing they were eliminated from the playoffs, is very admirable to the players that are on the roster that are on the field right now, right? You don't have to consider Dak Prescott. You don't have to consider D-Law or Diggs or Kendricks that was out. You don't have to consider those guys yesterday. Yesterday, you consider the people that are on the field. Cooper Rush played a pretty goddamn good football game for the Cowboys, right? Like he was on pace, it felt like, for 500 yards, but the Cowboys didn't do anything in the second half offensively, all things considered. But there was no running game. This was a Cooper Rush game, and the defense had to step up and make some plays when it counted, and they did that. They didn't lay over, they didn't roll over and die. They didn't just call it quits on the season. The Dallas Cowboys went out there and won a football game, and they won it for their brand. They won it for their teammates. They won it for Mike McCarthy. Now, look, say what you will about Mike McCarthy. Rumors, all signs starting to point to McCarthy and Zimmer being back. Let's run it back again. Now, remember, last time you heard run it back, it was after the Cowboys got completely destroyed by the Green Bay Packers last year in the playoffs. But now you have the Cowboys eliminated from playoff contention. What are you going to show us? Are you going to just kind of say like, F it, let's go and tank the season? I'm here to tell you guys, and I don't know how hard this is for people to grasp, but players do not tank football games. Not in the NFL. Not when, not all of your money is guaranteed. Not when your spot on the roster, and any NFL roster, is guaranteed next year. Your career could be over within a blink of an eye, and you're sitting there saying you're not going to try for the greater good of what? A draft pick? Now, again, I have my own personal things about this, right? I have my own personal beef with the tank community out there. I just think it's a loser mentality. Now, I understand, like, people's combat to that, or at least their argument to that, is that, like, don't just worry about the first round. It's having a nice draft pick, a nice selection in every round. Guys, I know how the draft works, right? I'm not new to the game here, but I also know that the draft is an absolute crapshoot. It's a crapshoot, and it's not the definition of your team's offseason success. I'm sorry, but that comes with free agency. The Cowboys have not been active in free agency in God knows how long, right? You bring in all these 1 year deals with veterans and stuff like that. It's all well and good, and you make some trades, and that's how we got Brandon Cooks. You do bring in talented players who do play a role for your team. Malik Hooker, guys like that, like who have played good ball elsewhere, brought in to contribute to your team right now. That is building a nucleus while you surround them with your draft picks, with your draftees, right? You can't win in this league with a complete draft team. You can't. All right. Look around the league. Every team in the NFL has a player, a stud player from another team that they got either on the cheap or they went out and they spent money. The Philadelphia Eagles knew there was a need at running back. They spent top dollar and brought in Saquon Barkley, and he's having a season of his life, right? And that's a bad example because it's a running back, but just think about the players that have been brought into teams. Kansas City makes a trade to get DeAndre Hopkins. Now DeAndre Hopkins can't even find the ball because of guys like Hollywood Brown. Where'd you get Hollywood Brown? You didn't draft Hollywood Brown. He's back, right? You drafted Worthy. Sure, he's been contributing. You drafted Pacheco. Sure, he's been contributing. But when Pacheco was down, who'd they have? Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt played for the Browns. You know what I mean? So there's always ways to build your roster around and with veteran players. And I think that's how the Cowboys, that's the key to the success of the 2025 Dallas Cowboys, considering you didn't want to go all in on 2024, and they didn't, right? It's a known fact that Jerry Jones said, we're all in, and it turned out to be just a clusterfuck, and nobody really cares about the moves that they made. They did make the Kendricks move, right? But this team's been battled and just completely bitten, snake bit by the injury bug this year, right? They've lost a lot of players. Dak Prescott, DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons was out for a long time. CeeDee Lamb's been playing with one arm, right? So these guys, and the offensive line woes, Zach Martin out for the year, losing Sam Williams in the spring, losing Deron Bland early on, and not having him until about week 10, week 11, 12, I don't remember. But these are key components. And now not having Trayvon Diggs, these are key components of your team that you can't overcome that for a long period of time. But what the Cowboys have established in the last 5 weeks, they've won 4 out of their last 5 games. Okay, they don't do that by accident. They do that with some core younger dudes that want to be here next year. If you put a bunch of guys out there with the mentality of we'll just tank and we'll figure out what we can do in the draft next year, they're not going to win football games and nobody's going to care. And I know everybody's they're getting butthurt about the idea of Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer coming back. Do you think if you fire your head coach, look around the league. Jets fire their head coach. Bears fire their head coach. Do you think that next year with a new coach, those rosters right now are built to win Super Bowls? That's a complete rebuild. New system, new this, new that. Now, look, again, there was calls last night that I wanted Mike McCarthy fired on the spot for. Trust me, I go through the roller coaster of emotions of a Cowboys fan that I would much rather him get fired on the spot for a bad decision. I'm talking about trying to run out the damn clock. Can't do that, right? He's throwing on first down, incomplete pass. Now you got to throw on second down, and you get 2 yards because you can't run the fucking ball, right? It's a bad mix. And Keith doubled down in the chat last night saying that this is one of the dumbest teams in the league, right? And this goes back to fundamentals. This goes back to play calling. They're a very silly team right now, right? But somehow, some way, they've scratched and clawed their way to a 7-8 record in which they're finding themselves 1 game under 500. In fact, they should be over 500 right now with that Bengals game. And we'd be talking about a completely different thing. You guys forget that the Green Bay Packers came in as the 7 seed last year and mollywopped the 2 seed, okay? So why not us? Now, I understand Cooper Rush is not Dak Prescott. He can't run as well as Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott hasn't really run that well either, right? So you have all these backups. You finally found an RB1 who you can rely on a little bit. And last night, like I said, it wasn't getting off the ground, no pun, but the running game just wasn't working, right? And that's something that you want to establish no matter what, win or lose or winning or losing. You don't want to abandon the run too fast. They didn't do that. And it was a little detrimental because, again, there was a couple 3-and-outs towards the backstretch of the game where you're like, oh, man, like, oh, they're going to give the ball again. They're going to give the ball again. And it was only a matter of time before Baker did a little bit of a hurry-up offense, got down the field as fast as he can, and scored a touchdown. Now, all of a sudden, you got yourself a game. And I'm like, oh, man, why is this happening? Like, we could have just ran the clock out and this, that, and the third. One first down could have ended it, blah, blah, blah. You want to keep giving the ball? And look, the improbable happened by guys that I hope are Cowboys lifers. Jordan Lewis played his ass off. DeRon Bland with the big strip and the win, the game-sealing fumble recovery strip, right? These are the guys that you want to build around. That's now your nucleus, okay? But if you bring in a free agent next year, he can absolutely adapt to what you got going on. Specifically, if it's a Mike Zimmer, former Mike Zimmer guy, who knows, right? But, like, you have to be able to establish yourself first as a team that's going to, battle until the very end. And that's what the Cowboys are doing right now. They're not sitting back and they're not saying like, well, we gave it, we're all like, the injuries stink and we can't get it right. And that's the end of that. That's not what they're doing. They're not laying down. And that's why I appreciate it as a fan. Like, I understand what the draft means to certain people. Like, maybe you guys get bored and you guys do all your mock drafts and you have your little nerd parties and like, well, if they fall to 12, we can get this running back from, like, nothing. Like, imagine, like, do your mock drafts for fantasy football, right? Which, by the way, I'm in 2 championships. Don't want to pat myself on the back too hard. But no, do your mock drafts in fantasy football. Does it ever play out after the first, 3 the way you saw it playing out in your mock draft? It never does. The Atlanta Falcons threw a complete wrench in the draft last year when they took Michael Penix, right? There was no reason for them to grab a quarterback. Well, maybe now there is, 17 weeks into a season, right? And now you see like, okay, this guy could be the future. And that's fine. But did you really need to draft him 8th, 9th overall? You didn't have to do that, right? So all these draft picks and stuff, and Micah Parsons drafted outside the top 10. CeeDee Lamb drafted outside the top 10. So what are you guys all worried about? Like, you want this coveted running back, but we're finding out that Rico Dowdle can run the fucking football. And I'm not, all right, you compare him. They're probably, the kid from Boise State's probably a better back, right? He's probably a more equipped back. But, like, are we willing to just say, the hell with Rico, even though he's rushed for over 100 yards in 3 straight games before last night? You guys are willing to try to get this new shiny toy. Now, when they drafted CeeDee Lamb, technically they needed a lot of different things when they drafted CeeDee Lamb, but they took the best available, and he was there. He fell into our lap in 2020, right? Micah Parsons, I believe the Giants traded back, basically gave us Micah Parsons. So things do happen on draft day where it does take shape, and you do get a steal once in a while. But you shouldn't just completely punt on the season because you're worried about 1 or 2 picks. Because think about it, a lot of these draft picks that have come in the later rounds, not named Dak Prescott, not named, some of the people. Like, I look around the league and I'm like, God damn, they found Pacheco in the 7th, right? And I'm a Rutgers guy, so I knew Pacheco going in. But, like, you're looking around these, like, who were they talking about last night? Bucky Irving. Found him in the 4th round, right? And he's made more people miss than any other running back in football. 4th round, right? So stop clamoring for that high draft pick and enjoy what we're watching right now. We're watching a team not quit. Isn't that what you want? How many times have you looked at the Dallas Cowboys and said, these guys got no heart. These guys are quitting. These guys aren't playing. Mike McCarthy lost the locker room. All that shit. You've said it time and time again, and I'm included in that. I'm included in saying, man, these guys quit. Mike McCarthy, man, these guys got to go. It's got to go, right? But what you're seeing right now is the complete opposite, and you're mad about it? You're mad about the team fighting? You're mad about the team trying to play some relevant football in December and to spoil some people? Who better than us to do that? You took Tampa Bay out of the playoffs. You got the Philadelphia Eagles, who are now losers last week against Washington. If they lose again, they might go into free fall. You don't know. You've seen it. You saw it firsthand last year. They might go in complete free fall mode. You don't know. And then you got Washington, who are on their high horse right now. The comeback kids, we're the best, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you go beat them in Dallas? Beat them in Dallas the last game of the year. Why the hell not? Have them send into the 7 seed not on fire like the Packers were last year, right? You might even see the Eagles play the Packers. I'm sorry, the Eagles play the Commanders in the first round. But imagine they're both reeling. Do you want anybody else in the NFC East to win the Super Bowl? Because if you do, then I don't even know why you're a Cowboys fan. You want to beat these teams. This is a rivalry. Those guys have stomped on you all year long in the media. The Eagles have been on another level. Saquon Barkley has played his ass off. He could have won MVP. I don't think he will because I think it's a quarterback award. But, they're playing very, very good football until now, just recently. Got a little crap going on with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. They want to debunk that. They want to, we're good. Look what we did. He forced me the ball 1,000,000 times last week. Everybody's good now. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe the Cowboys punch them in the mouth in Philadelphia next week and send them into a free fall. You're telling me that doesn't warm your heart as a Cowboys fan? Like, I hope we get blown out by Philly so we can move a spot up in the draft. How stupid do you sound? And none of this shit's promised. And again, I'm not going to get all technical with why me personally, but like, come on, man. Like you can get hit by a bus tomorrow. You want the last game you ever saw to be a fucking disgusting loss because you wanted to lose because you were worried about next year? Worry about right now. Worry about what the fuck they got going on right now, which is a lot. You can't sit there and say that the Dallas Cowboys have sat there and rolled over and died. They did not. They didn't. And that's a great, beautiful thing to see. Because when you thought it was over, right? And everybody's like, well, me, Keith, and Bret, we all made the comparisons. Okay, we need this, and this to work for them to do this, and this, and then we can get in. And so you're telling me there's a chance. Realistically, there wasn't a chance, but we were having fun with it. Part of being a fan, it's short for fanatic. You're obsessed with this team. And you're sitting there, well, this is why they're mediocre for the last fucking 20. 12-5 is not a mediocre football team last year. 12-5 the year before that, and 12-5 the year before that. They're a good football team. But then you run into the thing called the playoffs, and all of a sudden, there's certain things that just don't work out for them. And Dak's not the guy. Man, you got to miss me with that at that point, dude. The guy was a vote away from winning most valuable player in the league last year, man. And that's not up for debate. In fact, I think he had better stats. Throwing stats. You add in the Lamar running, and of course you're going to give the guy the MVP, but Dak was right there. You can't possibly tell me that this dude is not a good quarterback if he could have won MVP. That's not given to 32 people. It's not given to one per team. No, MVP of football. I understand that Dak Prescott's game has not been the same, right? He rolled his ankle, or he broke his ankle in 2020. Now he's coming off the hamstring. Now you may see a completely different Dak Prescott where the legs just aren't a thing anymore, right? Can he become the most accurate passer in NFL history? Probably not. But neither was Brett Favre. That motherfucker won a Super Bowl. You have to just take things for what they are. I've probably said 1,000,000 times this year that, Dak, Jesus Christ, man, oof, what a bad throw that was. Oh my God, Dak, what the hell are you thinking? That happens, man. It happens. And maybe I'm being naive. Maybe I'm being too much of a homer. Maybe I'm being just too close to it right now because I'm recording this the day after, literally less than 12 hours after they won the football game. And it wasn't with Dak Prescott. But what I'm saying is you have pieces. You have pieces in place to be a competitive football team right now with backups. I can't even pronounce the cornerback's name who filled in for Diggs last night without screwing it up. He's the same dude that screwed up the Bengals game, but he's in there. Nick Vigil? Are we kidding? Playing linebacker? That dude's a lifetime special teamser, right? And he's out there playing linebacker and almost recovering game-sealing fucking fumbles. These guys want to be here. They want to play. They want to win. They want to play for each other. If you want to root for a team to lose, go for it. But choose somebody else. Go root for the Giants. They stink. They've always stunk. For the last decade, they've stunk. No, we got the Super Bowls in 2007 and 2011. Great. 2011 is a long time ago, guys. It's 13 years ago. They won one game in MetLife Stadium in the calendar year, going back to last year of 2024. The Giants are horrible. So go root for the Giants if you like to lose. Go root for the Jets if you like to lose. No offense to the Jets fans out there, because I do pull for the Jets, but These are losing franchises right now. Go root for the Bears. Whoever, Caleb, we could draft him early. This is why we do this draft pick shit. What do we see out of Caleb right now? He's trash. Trash. And if you saw him coming up, Bryce Young, all season long, he got benched and replaced by Andy Dalton. Then you give him a little bit of a reset. He comes back, plays a little better. But then he ran into the Cowboys, who were out of it, and they sent his ass right back to where he was. Right back. Thank God for Chuba Hubbard, or that team would never win another game. So if you want to go root for losses, go root for losses. I'm not going to stop you from doing that. But don't sit there and say, I'm a Cowboys diehard. I know how it works. I'm going to root for the team to get a better draft. But you just sound stupid. You sound stupid and uneducated. Because if you think the draft is going to fix all the problems the Cowboys have going forward, you're clueless. You're absolutely clueless. And I'm sorry. You can be X's and O's and analytical and this, that, and the third. Like, be a fan first. That's what this podcast is all about. 3 fans. 1 today, but 3 fans that are rooting for a team to win football games because that's what you do with your favorite team. Sitting there arguing back and forth with me on Twitter about, well, I can't believe you're happy. What do you want me to, what exactly do you want? You want me to sit there and be like, fuck, we won. What? Replay that sentence in your head and make that make sense. Like, you can't control the draft. You can't control their spending. You can't control if you ever see another Cowboys game again in your life. So why are you going to sit back and worry about losing games to improve your stock for fucking April of next year? Root now. Get fucking hungry now. Be the spoiler now. Jalen Tolbert caught a touchdown pass, which Jalen Tolbert, to me, I said it last week. I said, this guy, unfortunately, never came into his own, right? And I don't think he's still, I still don't think he's a number 2, but he's a solid-ass number 3, I think, and a fantastic number 4. Catches a touchdown last night, does the Grinch dance. He knows the deal. They're playing Grinch, but they're playing for each other. Cooper Rush is playing for his life because he knows he's the backup of the Dallas Cowboys, but when the contract runs out, Cooper Rush is going to have some people bidding for him. He could be a Cowboy for life if he wants to be, but if the Giants need a stopgap, if they don't go and draft anybody, they don't draft Ward or Shador, and they decide Travis Hunter's the guy, you still need a quarterback. You know, there are teams out there that need a quarterback, and right now what you're seeing out of Cooper Rush is that he's a serviceable quarterback. They made a fucking commercial about backup quarterbacks, right? Like, he is a backup quarterback. He is the caliber of a backup quarterback. He has the smarts of a starter. He does. But his mechanics are a little off, and, you know, he fumbles once a game for whatever reason. Last night, me and my father were waiting for that. We're like, all right, when is he going to drop a snap? Because it's going to happen, right? But the mentality behind all this and the whole tanking thing, it never resonated with me, because the more you tank or lose games, the more that sets you up for shit. Is this roster complete dog shit? Because we don't have the money to reload. You already paid your quarterback. You paid your wide receiver. You have a cornerback making $1 trillion. You got a Micah Parsons who's due a contract. You better hope that you have the dogs on this team right now, because those are the guys we can afford. And yeah, you want to stockpile with some draft picks and some hungry dudes that want to make the NFL? Sure. But don't worry about getting a top 10 pick. Remember the people that we've drafted. Zach Martin, not a top 10 pick. CD, I just said that. No. Trayvon Diggs, 2nd round. Dak Prescott, 4th round. Zeke Elliott was the exception to the rule because he was a fun, exciting player. But in reality, people are saying, yeah, Jalen Ramsey would have been really good right there. We needed a corner bad. But that excitement carried him to a fucking one of the best regular seasons this team's ever seen. The draft is a crapshoot. Stop relying on that shit. Stop relying on it. Because not even you or any of your draft specialist buddies know what the fuck they're talking about. You can analyze talent. You can look at talent and see what they got and see, you know, hey, listen, this guy over here, he's going to be a stud. He's going to be a great NFL player, because most of the time, college going to the pros and you're like, oh, you know, he was all right. But like, you can analyze talent. You can put a grade on him. You can do whatever you want. But trying to pretend how everything falls is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because guess what? It doesn't ever happen that way. It doesn't. Look around. Look at all your mock drafts. You think the Giants were slated to take Daniel Jones where they took Daniel Jones? No. So let's all pretend like we know nothing, right? Try to take that mentality. I know you're a fan. You're an X's and O's guy. You know the team. You know the guys that are playing hard, right? But you cannot pretend to know who's out there, who's coming in, who's coming out. Just can't. Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't win with them. Can't do it. Right? So this is what I'm talking about. Like this is the kind of shit that you cannot wrap yourself in. Be present. Be excited that the Cowboys have not rolled over and died. This again, I'm never gonna go the other way with this ever. So if you're expecting me to ever turn the corner and say, you know what, drafting a couple spots, because if it happens by default, then it happens by default. If they can't beat Philadelphia and they lose to Washington, then guess what? You have a 7-10 team, and guess what? That is going to land you a top 12 pick in the draft. Congratulations, but they did it on their terms. They didn't do it because the fans are clamoring for a new head coach. A new head coach means a complete reboot. You have too much talent on this team right now for a complete reboot. That's not a thing anymore, right? The Washington Commanders have gotten better. The Eagles stay good. The Giants eventually, you would think, would maybe start to figure it out in the next 2-3 years. So let's not pretend like the Cowboys are some bum. You know, they're just not. Yeah, did they get their shit kicked out of us a lot this year, specifically at home, specifically in the beginning of the season? Yeah, it was bad. It was very bad. But it ain't bad right now. And this is when you want to get good. Because once this season is over, you'll look back and say, you know what? The 2024 Dallas Cowboys, while it was a mess to start, they finished pretty damn good. And now, healthier, wiser, add a couple free agents in key spots, have yourself a decent draft wherever you wind up, and you'll be a competitive football team in 2025. There's no, this team's going to go from however they finish, if at best 9-8, they're going to go 9-8, but next year they're going to go 2-15, right? That's not happening. And again, the other way, if they finish 7-10, you're also not, well, next year, don't worry about it. We'll be 15-2. You got to start somewhere. And right now, I think is a really good time to get hot, get right, and see what dogs want to fight next year. That's all I got. That's all I got. Now, Philadelphia coming up. It's Monday as I record this. It's a long week of prep. You got Christmas. You got all this other shit. So we don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to play. Kenny Pickett's getting x-rays on his ribs, so he's banged up. You really think he wants to see Micah Parsons? Chances are he's out too. So we'll see what they trot out there, right? I think the Cowboys are playing very good defense right now. I don't love them on the road. I don't. I'm not going to pick the Cowboys to win this game if Jalen Hurts or Kenny Pickett play. Because you still got Saquon trying to chase a record in history, and what we've seen the Dallas Cowboys do is unable to stop the run. I don't think the Cowboys are going to go out there and beat them up, but I think they got a fucking chance. I think they have a chance to punch those guys right in the mouth with the momentum they're carrying over from the 4 of the last 5 games, right? Your one loss is from basically a technicality, if you think about it. Could have won 5 straight. It's hard to do. Now, I know the Eagles have done it, and other teams have won a lot of straight games this year. But this Cowboys team, did you ever see this coming from this Cowboys team? I know I didn't. I don't think anybody did. Anybody did. So, we'll see. We'll be back next week, full force, after the Philadelphia game. We'll react to that. We'll react to the last week coming up against Washington. A lot to discuss there. I want to thank everybody for rocking with me today. Please subscribe and download follow the show so you never miss an episode. A lot of off-season content coming your way too. I want to get into the free agents. I do want to get into the draft when it's appropriate. I want to get into all that shit, and we'll do it right here on the Jersey Boyz Podcast. I do host another bunch of podcasts that I would rather just keep all my Dallas Cowboys shit right here on the Jersey Boyz Podcast. So thank you guys for watching, listening, however you're consuming this content, whether it be on TikTok, you want to talk some shit, you want to double down on your draft stuff, Go nuts, man. But I'm not hearing it. None of us are hearing it. None of us. Not me, not Bret, not Keith. None of us are hearing this draft shit. We want to win football games, so we're going to try to win some football games and enjoy this shit. Enjoy your Christmas with your families. I love y'all. Enjoy, the football on Christmas. We're about to dominate the NBA. All right, the NFL is just going to crush them. Netflix is ready to rock. I hope, based off the Jake Paul shit. You never know if there's going to be any buffering or anything like that. But Amazon Prime has got them shits pretty good. So maybe, they follow suit. Good games. Good luck to anybody in the NFL, fantasy football championship week. It's going to be a big one. Be a lot of fun. I'm going for 2 championships. That's never happened before in the history of me. So thank you guys for listening and watching. Let's go Cowboys, and we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, this is Tony Soprano, and you're listening to Jersey Boyz Podcast with your hosts, Dave Sturchio and the Ernst Boys. I mean, I could give a shit about the Cowboys. We're in New Jersey. These guys got balls being Cowboys fans in Jersey. Anyways, enjoy. Or whatever.
How about this, Cowboys?